The scream cuts through the quiet neighborhood like shattered glass. Sunlight flashes off the metal edge of the shovel as it swings down, fast, reckless, unstoppable. Dirt explodes into the air. My daughter's terrified cry freezes me in place. Her small hands still clutch the flower pot she was so proud to plant. The petals scatter across the grass like broken promises. "Don't you dare touch my lawn again." Karen's voice, sharp as the shovel itself, echoes off the white fences. I rush forward, heart pounding, breath burning, every instinct screaming to protect her. But the world blurs. Neighbors peek from their porches. No one moves. The shovel drops. My daughter sobs. And I stand there, trembling, realizing this isn't about flowers anymore. How did a few innocent petals turn into this nightmare? Before that day, our life was simple, peaceful in its own quiet rhythm. We'd moved into Willow Creek just 6 months earlier, believing it was the perfect place for my daughter Lily to heal and grow. The neighborhood brochure promised community, safety, and care. The kind of words you cling to when your child depends on a wheelchair and the world doesn't always slow down for her. Every morning, Lily would roll out to the front yard with her little gloves and her favorite terracotta pot. She loved flowers, and especially marigolds. She said they looked like tiny suns that never stopped smiling. Watching her plant them gave me hope. She'd name every flower she planted. Sunny, Coco, Braveheart. The HOA rules? I thought they were harmless formalities. No tall fences, no mismatched mailboxes, no unauthorized plantings. But Lily didn't understand red tape. She just wanted to make the sidewalk beautiful. Karen, the HOA president, lived 2 houses down. Perfect hedges, perfect smile, perfect everything. The kind of woman who measured her neighbor's grass height. At first I tried to be friendly. She'd wave politely, never warmly, until the day she saw Lily's flowers. Something changed in her eyes, a flicker of control she didn't want to lose. She told me once, "Children like her shouldn't make the place look messy." I brushed it off, thinking I misheard, but that morning, as Lily hummed while planting her tiny suns, I'd learned that Karen wasn't just strict, she was dangerous. It started like any ordinary Saturday morning. Warm sunlight spilling across the porch, the smell of damp earth, birds gossiping in the trees. Lily was at the edge of our small front garden, a little patch of soil she called her flower kingdom. I was inside, pouring orange juice when I heard her laugh, that light, bubbling sound that made every bad day feel small. Then came another sound, a voice, sharp, disapproving. "Didn't I tell you? No planting without HOA approval." Karen's tone sliced through the calm. I turned, confused, glancing out the window. There she was, storming across her manicured lawn, a pair of gardening gloves on her hands and a metal shovel clutched like a weapon. "Hi, Miss Karen," Lily said, smiling, clutching her flower pot. "I'm just making the sidewalk pretty for everyone." Karen's lips curled. "Pretty? You call that pretty? You people don't even follow the rules. You think because she's—" She stopped herself mid-sentence, but I heard it in her tone. "Because she's different." "Please don't step there," Lily said softly, pointing at the freshly turned soil. "That's where I planted Sunny." Karen's eyes darted down. She saw the bright marigold poking through the dirt and something snapped. "You don't tell me what to do on community property?" She raised the shovel. For a second, my brain refused to believe what I was seeing. Then the shovel came down, fast, violent, throwing dirt across Lily's lap. She screamed, the pot tipping over, flowers tumbling to the ground. I dropped the juice, glass shattering, and ran. "Karen, what the hell are you doing?" "She's trespassing," Karen snapped. "That's HOA land. I warned you people." "She's a child," I shouted, rushing to Lily's side. She was shaking, tears streaking through the dirt on her cheeks. Her hands clutched her stomach, terrified, not from pain but from shock. The neighbors peeked out from their blinds, silent witnesses hiding behind their curtains of cowardice. "Call 911, I yelled. "Now!" Karen just stood there, panting, eyes wide and unrepentant. "Maybe this will teach you both a lesson. Rules exist for a reason. You hit a disabled child." I screamed, her lips twitched. then maybe she shouldn't be playing where she doesn't belong. The world went silent for a moment. Only Lily's sobs filled the space. I scooped her up, dirt falling from her lap, her little hands trembling against my shoulder. Behind me, the shovel clattered to the ground. But the damage was already done. Not just to the flowers, but to the innocence of a little girl who just wanted to plant something beautiful. And in that moment, I swore. I'd never let Karen get away with this. When we got inside, Lily wouldn't let go of me. Her small fingers dug into my shirt as if she were trying to hold the world together. Her breathing came in uneven gasps, sharp, frightened little sounds that broke something inside me each time. "It's okay, baby," I whispered, setting her gently onto the couch. "You're safe now. I promise." But even as I said it, my hands were shaking. There was dirt in her hair, a red mark on her arm where the shovel's handle had grazed her. She winced when I brushed it. My stomach turned. "Did she hurt you anywhere else?" Lily just shook her head, eyes wide, lips trembling. "I didn't mean to make her mad, Mommy. I just wanted the flowers to smile." My throat tightened. "You didn't do anything wrong. Not one thing." I cleaned her up slowly, my movements automatic. Warm water, soft cloth, gentle hands that couldn't stop shaking. But inside, my mind was spinning. How could anyone, any adult, attack a child like that? Over flowers? I took a photo of the bruise, of her dirty hands, of the ruined marigolds outside the window. Every instinct in me screamed to march over to Karen's house right then and there. But another part, the rational part, told me to think, to be smart. So I called the police. The dispatcher's calm voice only made my fury sharper. "Yes, ma'am, we'll send someone out," she said, as if this were a noise complaint, not an assault on a disabled child. When the officers arrived, they took notes, asked questions, snapped pictures. One of them, a young man with tired eyes, knelt beside Lily and smiled softly. "You like flowers, huh? My mom used to grow sunflowers taller than me." Lily nodded, shyly clutching the corner of her blanket. "Marigolds," she whispered. "They don't die easy." That line stayed with me. The officers walked next door. I watched from the window, heart pounding, as Karen opened her door with that same polished smirk. She gestured wildly, pointed at our yard, at the flowers, shaking her head like she was the victim. After a few minutes, the officers came back. "She's denying it," one said. "Says she was defending HOA property. Claims your daughter swung the flower pot first." I stared at him. "She's 9, and in a wheelchair." He looked uncomfortable. "We'll file a report, ma'am. You'll need to contact the HOA and your lawyer, but since there's no serious physical injury," I cut him off. "No serious injury? You saw what she did? You saw her crying?" The officer sighed. "We'll note it, just don't confront her directly. Let the process work." When they left, Lily was quiet. Too quiet. She refused to go near the window. Refused to talk about her flowers. That night she asked me, "Mommy, do I make people angry?" That broke me. I sat beside her, running my fingers through her hair. "No, sweetheart. You make people happy. You make this world brighter. Some people just can't stand to see beauty they didn't create." She smiled faintly, closing her eyes. "Then I'll grow more flowers. Maybe she'll like them next time." Tears slipped down my face. "Maybe," I whispered, though I knew better. When she finally fell asleep, I stood by her bed and made a promise. Not to just protect her, but to fight. I took my phone, opened the neighborhood Facebook group, and typed out every detail. Every word. I didn't care if it went viral or if people whispered about me at the HOA meetings. By morning, the post had over 600 comments. Half of them from angry parents. Some from people who'd had their own run-ins with Karen. That's when I realized we weren't alone. And Karen's perfect neighborhood image was about to crack wide open. By the next afternoon, word had spread like wildfire. The post I'd made wasn't just local anymore. It had been shared across nearby communities, even reposted on neighborhood watch groups. People were furious. But Karen, she acted as if nothing had happened. When I saw her pruning her roses that morning, humming like the world hadn't just witnessed her cruelty, something inside me snapped. I didn't care what the police said. I needed answers. I left Lily inside with my mother and walked straight to Karen's front gate. My phone was already recording in my pocket. She glanced up, feigning surprise. "Oh, it's you." "Yeah," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's me, the woman whose daughter you hit with a shovel." Her expression hardened instantly. "Don't start this again." I told the officers everything. I was defending HOA property. "Your daughter was vandalizing it." "Planting marigolds isn't vandalism," I shot back. "You call that defending property? You call that self-defense?" Karen sighed as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. "You newcomers never learn. Rules are rules." The HOA board approved uniform landscaping. Random flowers break aesthetic order. It's about consistency, not cruelty. "Consistency?" My voice shook. "You nearly struck her face." "She's 9 years old and in a wheelchair, Karen." Her jaw tightened. "Then maybe she shouldn't be unsupervised. Maybe her condition requires more." Attention, that was it. The way she said condition, like it was a disease that inconvenienced her perfect world. I stepped closer. "You should be thanking her. She's got more kindness in her than you'll ever understand." Karen crossed her arms. "You people always play the victim. You want sympathy? Fine. But don't drag this neighborhood down with your drama." Her words felt like acid. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd black out. "Drama?" I hissed. "My daughter cried herself to sleep last night because she thought she made you angry." For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, but it vanished just as fast. "Tell her to follow the rules," she said coldly, "or next time I'll have her fined for property damage." That line, that smug, cruel next time, sent a chill through me. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just whispered, "You're done here, Karen. You don't even realize it yet." And I turned away. When I got home, the recording app was still running. Every word, every insult, every cold admission, saved. That evening, I reached out to a few of the people who'd commented on my Facebook post. Turns out, I wasn't the first. There was Megan, who said Karen called the cops on her teenage son for skateboarding on the sidewalk. Earl, a veteran who'd gotten a warning letter because his flag was too large. Even Mrs. Rodriguez, an elderly woman who'd been fined for improper mailbox color. Karen had been ruling this community like a dictator, hiding behind the HOA charter. But this time, she messed with the wrong family. I decided to take my complaint directly to the HOA board meeting the following Tuesday. I printed photos of Lily's bruise, copies of my police report, and a transcript of the recording. When I entered the community hall, heads turned. The tension was thick. Whispers, stares, the sharp scent of coffee and disinfectant mixing with judgment. Karen sat at the center table, her nameplate gleaming under the fluorescent lights. She smirked when she saw me. "Mrs. Taylor," she said into the mic, "you've requested to speak regarding your allegations." "Not allegations," I said calmly. "Facts." I handed the documents to the board members. The room fell silent as I pressed play on my phone. Karen's voice filled the hall. "Then maybe she shouldn't be unsupervised. Maybe her condition requires more." "Attention!" A collective gasp echoed through the room. Her confident expression cracked. "That recording is taken out of context," she snapped. "You have no right to—" "Oh, I have every right," I interrupted. "You humiliated and attacked a disabled child. You can hide behind your fancy bylaws all you want, but this neighborhood deserves to know who's been running it." Several people started murmuring, some angry, some shocked. One board member, a gray-haired man named Frank, cleared his throat. "Karen, we can't ignore this. This isn't the first complaint we've received about your behavior." Karen's eyes darted toward him. "Frank, don't start." He cut her off. "Enough. You've gone too far." I looked around the room. For the first time, I wasn't alone. Karen stood abruptly, grabbing her purse. "This meeting is adjourned. I won't be ambushed in my own neighborhood," she stormed out, her heels clacking like gunshots against the tile. But the damage was done, not just to her reputation, but to her illusion of control. That night, I tucked Lily into bed. She looked up at me and whispered, "Mommy, did the flowers win?" I smiled, brushing her hair back. "Not yet, sweetheart. But they will. because this wasn't over. Not even close. The days that followed felt like a blur of tension and whispers. It was as though the entire neighborhood held its breath, waiting to see who would blink first. Me or Karen? Karen didn't. She doubled down. By Monday morning, an official HOA violation notice appeared taped to my front door. Unauthorized landscape modifications, it read. Failure to comply will result in a fine of $250. It was laughable and infuriating. She was trying to punish a child for planting flowers. I posted a picture of the notice online with one sentence. My daughter plants flowers. Karen plants fear. By evening, it had over 8,000 shares. Messages poured in from parents across the country. People who dealt with similar bullies hiding behind neighborhood power. Some offered legal advice. Others offered moral support. One woman even messaged, "Don't stop. You're fighting for all of us." But Karen didn't just sit still. She went on the defensive, hosting her own emergency HOA press release on Facebook Live, sitting in her spotless living room with a row of fake orchids behind her. Her tone was syrupy, her smile plastic. "I'm deeply saddened by the lies being spread about me," she said. "I've always upheld community rules fairly. This situation has been exaggerated by individuals seeking attention." I watched the live stream in disbelief. Then came the part that made my blood boil. She leaned forward, lowering her voice dramatically. "As a former nurse, I have deep sympathy for children with special needs. But sometimes their parents let emotions cloud their judgment." The comment section exploded, half supporting her, half calling her a monster. I didn't comment. I didn't need to. Because I'd just received a message from someone named Eleanor, a retired resident who'd lived in Willow Creek for 15 years. Her message read, "I have something you should see. Meet me at the park tonight, 7 p.m. near the fountain." I almost ignored it. But curiosity and desperation won. At dusk, I walked to the park. The air was cool, heavy with the scent of pine. Eleanor sat on a bench in a pink cardigan holding a folder. She looked around nervously before speaking. "I served on the HOA board 6 years ago. Karen wasn't president then, but she wanted to be. She pushed the last one out, accused him of embezzling funds. Total lie." I frowned. "You're saying this isn't her first time doing something like this?" Eleanor nodded. "No, she thrives on control, but there's more. Last year, she got into an argument with a delivery driver who parked near her roses. She swung a rake at his truck. My heart dropped. She called it defending property," Eleanor continued. "The HOA buried it. But I kept a copy of the complaint." She handed me a yellow document, an official statement with Karen's name at the top. It was proof. Proof that this wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding. Karen had a pattern, intimidation disguised as authority. When I got home, I scanned the document, attached the recording from the board meeting, and sent everything to the county HOA regulatory office. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying the sound of the shovel, the look in Karen's eyes, Lily's terrified face. By morning, Karen had struck again, figuratively this time. She filed a defamation claim against me through the HOA attorney, demanding I delete my posts and issue a public apology. I laughed. "She's suing me after what she did?" But it wasn't funny for long. The letter threatened a $5,000 fine and potential lien on our property if I continued to slander HOA officials. That's when I called a lawyer. His name was Mark Jacobs, a community rights attorney known for taking on corrupt HOAs. When I explained what happened, he whistled. "Classic power abuse," he said. "And lucky for us, you have evidence. Video, recording, police report, witness statement. She doesn't stand a chance. We filed a counterclaim, assault, harassment, and emotional distress. Mark also advised me to file a restraining order." 2 days later, a sheriff's deputy served Karen at her doorstep. The look on her face when she saw that paper. Priceless. Neighbors watched from behind their blinds, the same ones who'd stayed silent before. Only now, whispers turned into murmurs of justice. But the pressure was mounting. Lily started having nightmares. She'd wake up crying, clutching her blanket. "Mommy, she's in the flowers," she'd whisper. I'd hold her close. "No, baby. Karen can't hurt you anymore." But I wasn't sure I believed it. Each morning, we'd find new warnings taped to our door, grass-length violations, trash can placement, even wheelchair obstruction of common property. It was harassment, calculated, petty, relentless. Until one morning when it all changed. A neighbor, Derek, knocked on my door, pale and nervous. "You need to see this," he said, holding his phone. He played a video, grainy footage from his home security cam. It showed Karen standing near our yard at midnight, shovel in hand, digging through Lily's flower patch. She yanked the marigolds out one by one, muttering under her breath, "Stupid flowers. Stupid kid, you don't belong here." My stomach turned. "This is from last night," Derek said quietly. "I thought you should have it before she deletes the evidence." That was it. The final straw. I sent the footage to my lawyer and the police. Mark smiled grimly. "This isn't a neighborhood dispute anymore. It's criminal." By the next day, local news stations picked it up. HOA president accused of assaulting disabled child. New video surfaces. Reporters camped near the entrance of the subdivision. Neighbors started speaking up. Karen vanished from sight. But justice, slow, grinding, unstoppable, had already begun to turn its wheels. The morning after the news story aired, I woke up to chaos. My phone buzzing non-stop, the sound of news vans idling down the street, and my inbox overflowing with messages from strangers. Some were parents. Some were lawyers. Some were people who'd faced the same kind of bullying from their own HOA tyrants. But one email stood out. It was from Officer Rayner, the detective who had initially brushed off our case. "Mrs. Taylor," I reviewed the footage that surfaced. "I'd like to reopen the investigation." For the first time in weeks, I felt the faintest pulse of hope. He came by that afternoon. His tone very different this time. Respectful, serious. He asked to speak with Lily. She was nervous but brave. She showed him her marigold drawings, tiny suns with smiling faces. On the bottom of one page, she'd written, "Flowers don't hurt people." "People hurt flowers." The detective's eyes softened. He nodded quietly and said, "That's good evidence, sweetheart." He wasn't talking about the drawings. He meant the video. Within 48 hours, the footage was submitted to the DA's office. Karen was officially charged with assault, harassment, and property damage. But that wasn't the only revelation. Mark, my lawyer, called me 2 days later. His voice carried a mix of triumph and disbelief. "You're not going to believe this. Remember how Karen claimed she was a nurse? Yeah? She's not. Her license was revoked 8 years ago for elder neglect." The room spun for a moment. "You're kidding." "Nope," he said. "It's all public record. She changed her last name after it happened. The HOA board never ran a background check before making her president." A rush of fury and satisfaction surged through me. The woman who called my daughter unfit to plant flowers had once been fired for neglecting people who depended on her. It was poetic justice, and I wasn't about to let it fade quietly. We sent the findings to the HOA board. The silence that followed was deafening. By that weekend, they'd called an emergency meeting open to the public this time. When I arrived, the hall was packed. Neighbors, reporters, even a few local officials. Karen wasn't there. But her empty seat might as well have been glowing. Frank, the same board member who'd once defended her, cleared his throat into the mic. "After reviewing the evidence and complaints, the board has unanimously voted to remove Karen Prescott from her position effective immediately." Applause erupted. Hesitant at first, then louder, rippling through the hall like relief breaking free. I didn't clap. I just sat there holding Lily's hand. She squeezed my fingers, whispering, "Did the flowers win, Mommy?" "Almost," I said softly, because even though Karen had been exposed, the damage lingered. Lily still flinched at sudden noises. She refused to go near the garden. Every time a car door slammed, her eyes darted toward the window. So I did something for her. Something small but powerful. We replanted the garden. Together. It took us a whole weekend. The soil was rough and cold, but Lily didn't care. Her hands were steady this time. She wore a sun hat too big for her head and sang softly as she dug. When she placed the first marigold into the earth, she whispered, "Don't be scared, Sonny. You're home now. I had to turn away so she wouldn't see me cry. That night, as we finished watering the last row, the air smelled like wet earth and hope. Fireflies blinked around her wheelchair, tiny lanterns in the dusk. And then I noticed something. A small envelope was tucked beneath our doormat. No return address. Just one word on the front. Sorry, I opened it. Inside was a photograph. Karen, years younger, in a hospital uniform, standing beside an elderly patient with a tired smile. On the back, she'd written, "I lost everything once because I couldn't control my anger. I guess I never learned. I'm sorry for what I did to your daughter. There was no signature." Just that, I didn't forgive her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I felt something. Maybe pity. Maybe closure. I tucked the photo into Lily's scrapbook under the page where she'd drawn Sunny. Because that's what this whole thing had become. Not just a fight for justice, but a record of resilience. And I knew deep down, the story wasn't just about a cruel woman in power. It was about a little girl who refused to stop planting beauty, even when the world tried to destroy it. The weeks that followed felt like walking through a storm, chaotic, relentless, and strangely clarifying. Karen's downfall had made headlines across the state. HOA president charged after attack on disabled girl, the newspapers read. Her photo, that perfectly polished woman with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, became a symbol of suburban cruelty. But for every victory, there was pushback. Karen still had allies, people who whispered that maybe it wasn't as bad as it looked, that I was making a spectacle. Some of them were on the HOA board. Some were our neighbors. They started subtle, cold stares, muttered comments, ignoring Lily when she rolled by. Then came the anonymous letters slipped under our door. Maybe you should move if you don't like the rules. Attention seekers like you ruin good communities. Each note hit me like a slap. Mark, my lawyer warned me, you're poking a system that protects its own. They'll try to wear you down. But I wasn't backing down. Not when my daughter still woke up screaming. Not when she'd look at the marigolds outside and whisper, "What if she comes back?" So we fought harder. I filed an official harassment claim against the HOA. We demanded a full audit of Karen's past violations, the fines, the intimidation, the silenced homeowners. Mark gathered statements from over 20 residents who had stayed quiet out of fear. And then, something beautiful happened. One of Karen's former supporters, Earl, the veteran she'd fined for flying his flag, showed up at our door with a folder. "She tried to shut me up too," he said, voice trembling. "But your daughter, she's brave. She reminded me why I fought for this country." "You're not alone." Inside his folder were 10 more complaints. Letters, fines, warnings, all signed by Karen over the years. Some were ridiculous, like bird feeder placement. Violation. Others were cruel. One woman fined because her husband had built a wheelchair ramp without prior HOA design. Approval. I realized then that Karen wasn't just a tyrant. She was the face of something bigger, a system that punished difference under the mask of community order. The battle grew public. Our case became a focal point for homeowners across the state. A local disability rights organization reached out, offering to support Lily's story. They invited us to speak at a small town hall event, not as victims, but as advocates. Lily was nervous, clutching her stuffed rabbit in one hand as we rolled her onto the stage. When the microphone was set in front of her, she hesitated, then whispered something that silenced the whole room. "I just wanted to make things pretty." Why did she hate that? There wasn't a dry eye in that building. The following week, the county court date finally arrived. The courtroom smelled of old wood and cold air. Karen sat at the defense table, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her perfect posture was gone. Her hands trembled as she spoke to her attorney. I took the stand, recounting every moment. The flowers, the shovel, the cries, the aftermath. My voice broke only once when they showed the video. Lily's scream filled the courtroom. Even the judge looked shaken. Karen's attorney tried to downplay it. An accident, a misunderstanding, momentary frustration. But when Mark presented the older complaint from Eleanor and the footage from Derek's camera, there was no defense left to stand on. Then, in a moment I'll never forget, the judge turned to Lily and said gently, "Would you like to say anything?" She nodded. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I forgive her, but I don't want her to hurt anyone else." Karen looked up, just for a second. Her eyes glistened. The room fell silent. When the verdict came, it felt like the air itself exhaled. Guilty of misdemeanor assault and harassment. Karen was sentenced to community service, fined heavily, and permanently banned from holding any HOA position again. But it wasn't just the legal win that mattered. The court also ordered the HOA to undergo mandatory disability inclusion and sensitivity training. The local paper ran the headline, "Child's Garden Sparks Reform. New HOA policies aim to protect vulnerable residents." For the first time since the attack, Lily smiled without fear. That evening, we celebrated quietly, just us. Pizza, laughter, and a candlelight glow over her marigolds. When she blew out the candle, she said softly, "Mommy, the flowers are smiling again," and I realized this wasn't just a battle won. It was a seed planted, one that would keep growing long after Karen's name was forgotten. When the dust finally settled, the silence felt strange, heavy, but peaceful. For months, our home had been filled with tension, lawyer calls, HOA meetings, and reporters knocking on the door. Now, for the first time, all I could hear was the hum of the evening cicadas and the soft rustle of Lily's wheelchair as she rolled out to her garden. She looked stronger now, not just physically, but in spirit. Her marigolds had grown tall and bright like an army of golden suns standing guard around her little plot of land. Every morning she talked to them like old friends. "You did so good," she'd say, watering them carefully. "You didn't give up. Neither did we." After Karen's conviction, the HOA board underwent a complete restructuring. Frank, the gray-haired board member who had once looked away, publicly apologized. "We failed as a community," he said during the next meeting. "We forgot compassion. He wasn't wrong." The board passed the Lilly Amendment, new bylaws that protected accessibility rights, prohibited harassment of disabled residents, and banned fines for non-structural decorative landscaping. It meant anyone, no matter their condition, could plant what they loved without fear. That change rippled beyond our neighborhood. News stations covered it. Disability advocates called it a small but powerful step toward inclusion. For Lily, it meant freedom. She joined a local community garden program where she taught other kids, some in wheelchairs, some not, how to plant their first flowers. She became the little sunshine of that group. One boy, also in a wheelchair, told her, "You make me feel brave." Sometimes I'd watch her from afar and think, this all started because of one cruel act, one moment of injustice. And yet here we were, growing something beautiful out of it. Karen moved out quietly a few weeks later. No goodbyes, no sale announcement. Her house went dark. Her perfect roses wilted. No one missed her. Still, the fear she left behind took longer to fade. Lily would ask sometimes, "Mommy, do bad people always get caught?" I'd pause before answering. "Not always," I'd say. "But when good people speak up, they can't hide for long." We started attending therapy sessions together, family trauma counseling. It helped both of us heal. Lily began drawing again, this time pictures filled with smiling flowers, bees, and butterflies. Her therapist said she was learning to replace fear with beauty. One afternoon, she handed me a drawing, a big marigold with a heart in the middle. "This one's for you," she said. "What's it called?" I asked. She smiled. "Braveheart 2.0, I laughed through tears. "Of course it is." The same week, the local news invited us for a follow-up interview titled From Hurt to Hope. They asked me what I'd learned through all of it, the confrontation, the lawsuit, the pain. I told them the truth. "That strength isn't loud," I said. "It's steady. It's showing up for your child when the world looks away. It's believing that kindness can fight cruelty and win." Lily sat beside me during the interview, wearing her sun hat and holding a single marigold. When the reporter asked her if she'd forgiven Karen, she nodded. "Flowers don't hate," she said. "They just keep growing." The reporter teared up. The clip went viral within hours. That night, hundreds of people commented under the video. Parents of disabled children, victims of HOA abuse, teachers, and strangers. One comment stood out. "Your daughter taught me more about strength in 5 words than most adults could in a lifetime." The garden became a local symbol. Neighbors began planting their own marigolds in solidarity. Little patches of gold started popping up all around Willow Creek. They called it the Sunshine Line. Every time I walked through the neighborhood and saw those flowers, I thought of how far we'd come, from fear and fury to healing and hope, and somewhere deep inside, I realized something else too. Sometimes the universe uses pain as a seed. What grows from it? That's up to us. Because one small girl in a wheelchair had turned a story of cruelty into a garden of change. It's strange how a single act, one cruel, senseless swing of a shovel, can change the rhythm of an entire life. Before that day, I thought of our home as ordinary. A little house with a white fence, a small patch of green, and a dream of belonging. But now I know, belonging doesn't come from rules written on paper. It comes from hearts that choose compassion over control. This journey taught me more than I ever expected. It taught me about advocacy, faith, and the quiet power of persistence. If you're a parent of a disabled child, here's what I learned, and what I'd whisper to you if you ever found yourself in the same storm. First, believe your child. When Lily told me she didn't understand why Karen was angry, she wasn't being naive. She was seeing truth without hate. Kids with disabilities sense injustice deeply. They just don't always have the words for it. Trust their emotions. They rarely lie. Second, document everything. Every bruise, every notice, every cruel word, write it down, save it. Justice isn't handed to the loudest voice. It's earned by the most prepared. My phone recordings and photos didn't just tell our story. They protected it from being erased. Third, find your allies. In the beginning, I thought we were alone. But once I spoke out, others stepped forward. The veteran, the elderly woman, the quiet neighbors who'd suffered in silence. People want to do good. They just need someone brave enough to go first. Fourth, watch for red flags in authority figures. Anyone obsessed with rules over reason is a danger to empathy. Whether it's a teacher, a boss, or an HOA president, if their need for control outweighs their compassion, they will eventually hurt someone. Fifth, let healing take its time. There were days I wanted closure fast, a public apology, an easy ending. But healing doesn't rush. It blooms quietly like Lily's marigolds. Some days it hurts to look back. Other days, I'm grateful it happened because it forced the world to change and forced me to grow stronger. Most of all, I learned that justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers through the laughter of a child who dares to plant again. Lily is 10 now. She still names every flower she plants: Braveheart, Sunny, Coco, Hope. She doesn't ask about Karen anymore. Instead, she talks about her dreams, becoming a horticultural therapist, helping other kids plant flowers to heal, and I see it, her purpose, her power. Sometimes I sit on the porch with my coffee watching her work in the garden. The sunlight hits her hair just right, and for a moment, I can almost forget the nightmare that started all of this. Because out of the ugliest day of our lives grew something beautiful: resilience. If there's one message I could give anyone listening, it's this: you don't have to be loud to make a difference. You just have to refuse to stay silent. The world will always have its Karens, people who hide cruelty behind order, who use power to break what's gentle. But it will also have Lilies, small hands planting hope in the cracks of concrete. And when I see those marigolds glowing gold in the sun, I know which side I'll always fight for. The camera of memory always seems to pause at the same moment. The shovel frozen mid-air, the sunlight flaring across the petals, the scream that broke the peace. But now, when I replay that scene, I don't stop at the scream. I let it roll forward. because what came after matters more. It's Lily's laughter I hear now, clear, full, alive, as she wheels through her marigolds, her palms brushing their orange crowns like tiny flames. It's the hum of the neighborhood children planting beside her. It's the quiet pride in knowing that the same patch of earth that once held fear now blooms with forgiveness. We rebuilt everything that day was meant to break, not through anger, through growth, and to you, yes, you, watching this, listening, maybe remembering your own story. If you've ever felt powerless in the face of cruelty, I want you to remember something. Every time you choose compassion, you plant a seed that outlives hate. If you're a parent going through this right now, hold your child close. Believe them, protect them, and never ever let anyone convince you that kindness makes you weak, because kindness is what made my daughter strong enough to forgive. It's what turned a broken garden into a movement. So if you believe every child deserves respect, every voice deserves to be heard, subscribe, share our story, and help these flowers keep blooming. And next week, I'll share something I never expected. How one unexpected apology changed not just our lives, but our entire community. Until then, remember what Lily always says when she waters her marigolds: flowers don't hate. They just keep growing. If this story touched your heart, don't scroll just yet. Hit subscribe, share this video with someone who believes in standing up for what's right, and drop a "I" in the comments for Lily's marigolds. Every flower planted, every story shared is one more step toward a kinder world. Because when we speak up, when we grow through the cracks, we remind the world that even the smallest seed of justice can change everything.